And so an anti-pattern, so let's talk about some patterns. So in class, we talked about the Fibonacci pattern. It's a perfectly good pattern. Fibonacci is a really good pattern because there's a rule that lets us, or there's a process or a rule that lets us see what's coming next. So we have 1, 1, and then the rule is the next number comes from the previous two number added together. So the next would be 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, dot, dot, dot. So something is a valid pattern here because we can describe what's making the things that we're seeing, and that pattern will always hold. This works perfectly well. This wasn't actually the kind of pattern that I had in mind. That's okay. It's not wrong to say that this is a pattern. The kind of pattern I had in mind were more algebraic things that we see. So for instance, we looked at a times b squared is equal to a squared times b squared. And the important thing here was that we didn't have to rely on someone else to tell us that this was correct or incorrect. Rather, we were able to walk through and justify why this actually holds. We actually wrote out the process of explaining why this holds by writing out the A's and moving forward. So here are two types of patterns. This is called an algebraic pattern because it's using algebra. This is called a sequence. It's a list of numbers that come in order, one after the other. And if you're doing sequences as your patterns, that's totally cool. Sequences are an awesome type of pattern. If you're using algebra as your patterns, that's also totally cool. Algebra is another type of pattern. There's a trap here, and the trap is easy to fall into because smart people fall into this trap. You cannot say someone else's sequence is invalid because they infer a different rule than you do. So if we start out with a sequence that starts out, the sequence starts 1, 1, 2, 3, and the next entry is 4. Can you say that sequence is wrong? No. It may be there's a different pattern it's following. So you can say that a sequence is right if you have a particular rule in mind and it matches it, but you can't say that someone else's sequence is wrong. This is what drives me crazy about IQ tests. IQ tests will often have these types of questions, and it's not a statement that there's one correct way. It's not true at all. There is a valid sequence that starts this way. This is not an anti-pattern. You can't say it didn't proceed in the way that I would have done it or the rule that I was thinking of. I'm just going to say that it's wrong. You can't, that's not valid. Does that make sense?